George Clinton is a $4 million rich American R&B singer-songwriter and music producer. George Clinton is most known for founding the Parliament-Funkadelic group in the 1970s, which popularized a brand new genre of funk music. Science fiction themes and surreal humor are just two of the distinctive elements that George is known to incorporate into his music. In addition, he is renowned for his outlandish and psychedelic sense of style. In 1982, Clinton launched her solo career with the release of the album Computer Games. This album would turn out to be highly influential, particularly with reference to the later 1990s genres of G-funk and hip-hop. George is now regarded as one of the greatest innovators in the funk genre, right up there with Sly Stone and James Brown. In addition to being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1997, he was honored with a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award in 2019. Childhood. In Kannapolis, North Carolina, on July 22, 1941, George Edward Clinton was born. George, who was raised in Plainfield, New Jersey, started pursuing music at a very young age. He founded the Parliaments, a doo-wop group, in his teenage years. It was during these early years that he also worked at a barbershop. After a while, Silk Palace, the barbershop George owned in Plainfield, became a well-liked hangout for neighborhood musicians in the 1950s and 1960s. Career. In the 1960s, Clinton started working as a staff songwriter for Motown, which marked the beginning of his professional career. This move turned out to be less than impressive at first. He did not have any commercial success, even though he wrote the single Testify, which was a major hit. He also produced and orchestrated a number of singles that Detroit-based soul music groups released during this time. After that, Clinton continued on with the Parliaments, who were successful in the 1970s. They would go by different names when they performed, sometimes going by Parliament and other times by Funkadelic. The Parliaments were greatly influenced by Jimi Hendrix, Frank Zappa, and James Brown in their formative years. Having said that, they also investigated their own theories about novel sounds, electronic music, and poetry. This turned out to be a very fruitful time for George Clinton as well as the Parliaments. The group put out 40 hit singles, including 3 chart-topping R&B hits, and released 3 platinum albums. In the 1980s, George started to worry about Polygram acquiring Casablanca Records, which had previously been Parliament's record label. Then, for the first time, he started writing solo music, though he continued to work with a number of musicians from his previous projects. After that, Clinton had to deal with a lot of legal problems related to copyright and royalty. Notably, he claimed that Bridgeport Music had violated his copyright. George inked a new record contract with Capitol Records at the beginning of the 1980s. He kept putting out music, both on his own and with the P-Funk All-Stars. Then, as a solo artist, he released his popular album, Computer Games, which included hits like Loopsilla and Atomic Dog. Throughout the 1980s, Clinton released 4 more studio albums that solidified her status as a well-known made a name for himself as a popular music producer in the 1980s. He collaborated with musicians like Red Hot Chili Peppers and Bootsy Collins, the latter of whom asked Clinton to produce their album, Freaky Styley. The theme song for The Tracy Ullman Show was written by Clinton in 1987. George was regarded as a major influence by many artists due to his extensive activities in the 1980s. In the 1990s, Clinton's music was sampled by several rap producers, which made him more well-known to younger people. Clinton collaborated with Prince's record label, Paisley Park, towards the close of the 1990s to release The Cinderella Theory. Before George agreed to a new contract with Sony 550, a few more albums were released. In the early 90s, George worked with Primal Scream on their album, Give Out But Don't Give Up. The musician also made appearances in a number of movies during this time, such as House Party, Good Burger, and The Breaks. The G-Funk era began at this point because Dr. Dre was heavily sampling Clinton's music. George discovered that he was working with more musicians, such as the rap metal group Methods of Mayhem. Growing even more involved in the world of rap, Clinton collaborated with Tupac Shakur on records like All Eyes on Me. Along with Ice Cube, he collaborated on the album Lethal Injection. Clinton worked with a variety of musicians during this time, including Redman, Outkast, the Wu-Tang Clan, and many more. In the video game Grand Theft Auto: San Andreas, George Clinton made an appearance in the 2000s, voicing the host of a funk radio station. In addition, he started his own record label, C. Conspiracy, and made several TV appearances. Subsequently, he worked with Snoop Dogg on The Blue Carpet Treatment. Clinton resumed her film and television career in the 2010s. Following pacemaker surgery, he declared his official retirement from touring in 2018. Connections. Clinton wed Stephanie Lynn Clinton in 1990. Before George filed for divorce in 2013, they were wed for 22 years. After that, he wed Carlin Thompson Clinton, who had served as his manager for more than 10 years. Prior to these marriages, Clinton had children. His 50-year-old son was discovered dead in his Florida home in 2020. Natural causes claimed his life. The set of photos featured George and Carlin enjoying some time together while hanging out. In the first picture, Carlin was making a silly face while resting on George's back. The pair were wearing patchwork cowboy hats, and Carlin, the person who took the selfie, was wearing a black and white patterned turtleneck, while George had a purple sweater wrapped around his shoulders. George noted in the post's caption, "Today is our anniversary. #LoveIsLove, #George Clinton, #Carlin." In the second photo, Carlin looked stunning as she wore sunglasses, long double hoop earrings, and a low-cut haircut. George, however, was wearing a patched cowboy hat with an artistically patterned shirt on top. Carlin and George were seated on a green sofa in the third picture, which had clothes racks along the back. George wore white sneakers while Carlin opted for high-knee red leather cowgirl boots. To finish off their ensemble, the two wore black sweaters with various patterns and hats. George disclosed that his wife Carlin assisted him in getting up that way of living. The final picture showed Carlin giving George the side-eye while she took their photo and George smoking. It was in black and white. In the comments section, fans wished the couple a happy anniversary and expressed their hope that they would be together for a very long time. A few others joked that he had brought Carlin to his fabled spacecraft. In addition to being George's second wife, Carlin has been overseeing his career for the past 10 or so years. Originally, he was wed to Stephanie Lynn Goshorn. 2013 saw the irreversible breakdown of George and Stephanie's marriage, leading them to file for divorce. While George had a son who passed away in 2010 from liver disease, the couple did not have children together. George became well known for his vibrant clothing and hairstyles, and he became recognized as one of the pioneers of funk with his group, the Parliament-Funkadelic. During their years together, the group and George experienced enormous success, but when new musical genres and forms emerged and the funk style began to fade, things took a turn for the worse. George, who was well known for leading a fast life and abusing drugs and cigarettes, disclosed that he gave up these habits as he grew older with Carlin's assistance.